I don't remember us doing
You're live.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Joe. And welcome everyone to the Women in Publishing and Strong Leadership live discussion panel. We're part of GoIndieNow's 72-hour live coverage of the awesome Brain to Book Cyber Convention. I'm your moderator for this discussion. I'm Christie Stratos, author of Anatomy of a Darkened Heart. And I own my own editing business, Proof Positive, which is proofpositivepro.com. So I would love it if you ladies could each just briefly introduce yourselves, sort of the way I did, so we know who we're talking to. So let's start with you, Angela.
I am Angela B. Chrysler. I am author and owner of Brain to Books and co-founder, and I am also the event coordinator for the Brain to Books Cyber Convention.
Excellent. Let's move on to Amy.
I am Amy Irene Winters. I am a YA fantasy author. I just finished a book called Strange Luck, which is available everywhere, and I'm currently working on my new book, The Nightmare Birds, which should be out this summer, possibly early fall.
That's great. Thanks. How about you, Claire?
Hi, I'm Claire Plaisted in New Zealand. It's just gone 3 a.m. here. I have a business called Plaisted Publishing House, and I help other people format their work to get published online, and I'm also an author.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks. How about you, Karina?
Hi, I'm Karina Gantus. I'm over in Corfu, Greece. It is now 6 p.m. over here. I'm an author-writer. I'm also a VA narrator. I have 8 books published and was first published around 20 years ago. So, hi everyone.
Good, long career, nice. On to you, Marky. Can you hear us, Marky? All right. For now, we'll move on to Marnie.
Oh, me? I am Marky Madden. Good morning. Yeah, it's early for me. I'm a night owl normally. Anyways, I've published several books, the most popular ones right now being the Undead Unit series. Number 1 is Fang and Claw. Number 2 is Souls of the Reaper. I also own Metamorph Publishing. You can find us at metamorphpublishing.com. I have published 3 books for other authors. I have 1 in the works right now. And one of my authors is my youngest daughter, so yay.
That's great. Thanks, Marky. And finally, Marnie.
Hi, I'm Marnie Kate. I am the young adult author of the Protectors of the Elemental Magic series. I have 2 books out. My first publishing was last March, and my 3rd is hopefully going to be done by June.
Great. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today, ladies. This is an amazing panel of women. You are all from like different areas and corners of the publishing industry, which is awesome. So we have a bunch of questions from Twitter, which I'm going to pose to you. But first, I wanted to start with a really broad question to get us like sinking our teeth into the subject. So one thing that I've noticed, at least in my own experience, is that there are still plenty of roadblocks in the corporate workplace for women. There are times when we have to work twice as hard, and we have to, like, sometimes it's harder to get hired by a company or to move up the corporate ladder. But in the indie book industry, I feel like this is the opposite, actually. And I have personally noticed that I think that more than 50% of indie authors are women. And I feel like even over 50% of author-oriented businesses for indie books are women. Have you noticed the same thing? And why do you think that that's the case? Any of you can answer.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in there on that. Statistically, women do read more. And I remember as if I were there, 100 years ago, around Louisa May Alcott, women did not publish, which is one of the focus points on Little Women, is Josephine, the writer, tried to publish, and they said, you need to go to a woman's magazine. This is not, we don't publish for women. And one of the things I remember very strongly her saying is, this is not a little story. And they did not take her seriously. And Louisa May Alcott definitely reflected her own struggles in Josephine's character. So here we are, flash forward about 100 years, and women have trumped this industry. Not to say we're better, but because it is far more attainable. I think it's because it is the arts, because we are far more open-minded with the concept, and we have more than proven our salt with this. We can do it. And I think we've gone over this massive hurdle. I was just speaking to Jin Okubo. He's a male romance author. And one of the things that we were discussing was the prejudice in the industry with where one gender can write over another. J.K. Rowling's name is published as J.K. Rowling because boys don't read female authors. And I think J.K. is credited in a lot of this because she proved that obviously she can. She proved that women can. And as a result, this concept, I'm a fantasy author and I published under Angela B. Chrysler. And women don't write fantasy. That's supposed to be the expected norm, and it's not anymore. And as I said, Jin Okubo published under Jin Okubo, his male name. And I remember when I looked at that, I was like, wow, that's... So we are seeing less of a prejudice. It is becoming more and more, you know, this is my credit, this is my name.
Yeah, that was a really interesting point about J.K. Rowling, actually. I did not know that that was the reason she did that. That's a good one. What about any of you other ladies?
I have to say, and no offense to Joe or any of the other excuse me, men that are watching, women do tend to have a better eye for detail and for perfectionist in their work, I think, and possibly that has to do with how we're getting out there in the world to us, and hey, can you help me do this, because you know I'm not very good at editing, or I'm not very good at formatting, and I think it's that attention to detail that kind of gets us a little bit ahead in the game.
Yeah, and that collaborative spirit, like you're saying, also. A little bit less competitive, maybe more collaborative. Yeah.
I would agree with both of them. I think there's a lot more female protagonists out there now, especially with like the Hunger Games, Divergent, Beautiful Creatures. It's a lot more about the female protagonists and about the female power. And so I think it's a wonderful time to be a female writing right now, especially like an indie female author. And just getting out there. I think it's just about embracing what society is finally accepting.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a perfect time for us to be out there, exactly. Absolutely. All right, thank you. Okay, so Karina, did you have something to say? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, just lifting up a bookmark here. What I've noticed actually in these events, Facebook events, it's all women. You hardly ever see a male author in these events, and that just goes to show that the percentage is a lot higher than people think for indie authors.
Aurelia and I were talking. Aurelia Maria Casey is running the panel discussions during the convention, and we pulled up a let's examine who's in the future panels, and it's with the exception of zombies and I think science fiction. All the panels were composed of men. We had Massimo Marino in our panel discussion with world building. He was the only male, among I think 7 women. And then we had Gianna Okubo, the only male in the romance panel. And again, that was made up of about 7 to 8 women. So, and Joe here is, you know, among us, and yes, he's the only male. So it is. As I said, and I think the other thing is with panel discussions, with the videos going live, women have a more tendency to talk, whereas guys are just, yeah, I don't really want to talk, which is, you know, that's just our makeup. So I think we are going to see a lot more females out in the live industry where we're speaking. You know, we do tend to yap a lot more, so I think that's part of it.
These are all fantastic
answers.
Yeah,
women definitely tend to be more social.
Yeah, very much. Very, very much.
I agree with all of that. Okay, so if we're done with that question, then I'm going to move on to one from Twitter, and that is, how does being a woman help or make it more challenging, I guess, in the indie author industry, or, you know, just the whole publishing industry? Does anyone have any thoughts on how it might help or make it even more challenging? Because I think that what we were just saying is it's maybe even a little bit less challenging, you know, for us to be in an indie publishing industry. But let me know your thoughts, yeah.
Well, I think this works out well for me because my husband is the primary breadwinner, so he's able to support me while I do this. And I think that's really how it helped me out. Is I took the role of the stay-at-home mom, and while my husband goes out and produces what he needs to for financial stability. And it was actually his idea that he said to me, you know what, don't worry about getting a job right now. Why don't you focus on publishing your book? And that permitted me the last of this so I could throw it out there. And it was, yeah, it was really, to me, that's how it's insightful. To me, that's how it really helped me. I don't think there's any real hurdles or anything 'cause with this business, because it's self-published, because it is indie. You can take this as far as you want. You can take it, your imagination, your drive, your perseverance and endurance are the only thing in your way with this industry.
I feel the same way. I think you're completely right, Angela.
I guess I just don't see the gender issue, and maybe I'm naive. I've never wanted in the corporate world to climb a ladder, so that's not an issue. And as far as publishing, I've not seen any reason why any women versus men issues on books. I mean, they're different.
And I agree,
but
Marnie. I never experienced the gender wars in the business when I was a professional. When I was in an actual working 9-to-5 job, I didn't see that either. So.
But then I also did choose the secretarial role that most men would not be in that position. So.
One of the things that I have heard many times still in the corporate world that I think it might be where some of this is stemming from is sometimes a woman will be passed over because for a promotion or something, especially something that's very time consuming, because it's a possibility that she might want to have a family and leave the work world. So I think that's one of the biggest concerns that's just always there. You know what I mean? I think we're way more equal and have been for a long time in the corporate world, but that's one of those things that's tough to shake, and it's really unfortunate. So for me, that's the one thing that I would say still exists in a lot of companies, but does not exist in the indie world because you can keep working all the time, and even if it means you're working in a notebook, you can still do it,
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody else, has anybody faced any challenges? I have never faced a challenge as a woman in the indie world at all, so it sounds like nobody else has either, which is great.
Yeah.
Good.
I actually worked in law enforcement for about
challenges, yes. I've actually found with my publishing business that most of my clients are actually male.
Oh, look at that.
So it's total opposite from everybody else. Of course, when it comes to the author's books, there's a mixture of everybody. I think most of them are female authors, but as a whole, out of all the clients I've had so far, they've all been guys, and older guys as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Claire, because I was actually just looking at your website yesterday or the day before, and I was like, there's a lot of men here. That's so funny. There isn't a balance. It is mostly men. Do you find that it's any particular genre, or is it pretty wide, a good spread?
There's been quite a few memoirs type books, generally fiction, based on true stories. Other than that, it's just anything and everything, really. I've had a book of poetry from one lady, mainly doing it so she reformatting so she could sell it online. Mm-hmm. But the guys, I've had children's stories, as I said, memoirs. It's been a right mixture.
That's great. That actually leads me into another question, which is, do you think that there are some genres that women haven't really broken into that they should be in?
Well, as an author myself, I write practically all different genres, so I'm not sure I can really answer that one. I have a go at anything and everything. I seem to have different muses for different things, and they don't stop half the time.
That's good.
So
yeah.
yeah, it's quite a hard question to answer. Sorry.
No, it is a tough one. That's why I bring it up. We're here to discuss difficult questions. But I think we have a lot of multi-genre authors here.
Yeah.
Some of us, will. Yeah.
I'm curious, what span do we have? I have fantasy and memoir here, and I heard somebody else who writes fantasy.
I have fantasy and young adult fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I suppose, mystery, private detective. I've got short stories, thrillers, sci-fi. I've got all sorts, but a lot of them are actually not published yet.
Yeah,
I've got memoir, I've got nonfiction, fantasy, crime paranormal. I'm pretty much all over the place.
Not settled into one genre.
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Yeah, I'm historical fiction and dark fiction myself, psychological fiction. So it sounds like, there are so many subgenres these days also that I think it also makes it a difficult question to answer, but Angela, it was interesting that you mentioned before that seeing a male romance author was a little bit like, so I was thinking like, I'm trying to think.
It's funny because I do know a couple of them, and they all have to use names to cover up who they really are. And I've spoken in length with one of the authors, and he is very, very upset because he is a very good romance author. He is, and he writes all female protagonists, and he has a massive following. He's been doing this for so long, and one of the things he was very upset about is he is not allowed to join the romance. There are so many romance clubs and romance leagues, and he is not allowed. It's strictly women only. And even though it's romance authors, he is not allowed to join. And that, to me, I think there is definitely, and honestly, I think this is really where the gender comes into it. I think women have fewer hurdles to get over with our prejudice here in the States and the publishing world than men do. I think men have more obstacles to face, than women do, because it's acceptable for women to write romance and not men. And when a woman jumps over to fantasy, now we're accepted into the genre. And I think if a woman were to write science fiction, as long as you are a prestigious scientist who knows your stuff, you're okay.
This is what I was going to say about science fiction. It's normally male authors. You don't find many women and the women that do write science fiction, I don't think they're taken seriously unless they're like,
I do want to add to that because this is I love this topic. My husband has a master's degree in organic chemistry and physics, and one of the things we've discussed is women in the science field. And he said it is very common knowledge. This is not to be prejudiced or anything. It is statistics. When you begin in the science field in college, your first semester, you will see 50-50. Sometimes you'll see more women in the field than men. But then when you are bumped up to that next level of science, you see that 25% of the women didn't make it. And then when you jump up to that third, you are down to now maybe a handful. And he said by the time he made it to the master's level and his graduate level, there was one female in the entire class. And the females dropped out. They had children. They decided it wasn't for them. But there is statistically a far fewer female to male ratio when it comes to science, the world in general. And one of the requirements with science fiction is knowing your facts. So statistically already the female numbers in science fiction are at a disadvantage because of that. So you are going to see fewer females in science fiction because at the end of the day, it's not about male or female. It is required that you know what you are doing when it comes to science fiction. And the ones that aren't taken seriously, it doesn't matter if they're male or female. I've seen plenty of male science fiction authors who are not taken seriously because at the end of the day, they don't know the science. And Science fiction readers are a tough audience with high standards. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're always looking to debunk things and stuff, yeah.
Yes, yes. I can't watch Big Bang Theory without my husband pausing it and arguing with Sheldon. They've got to know their stuff. So, it's interesting in my house. I think that really is, for that genre, I think that's why we are seeing men trump that genre, whereas, with the other genres, I don't see the prejudice. And it's not really prejudice, it's just the way it is. I don't see, does anyone else see a prejudice here with it? I'm curious.
I think what you said makes a lot of sense. In the fantasy world, it's more about, I would say, creativity and just thinking outside the box and something new. But in science fiction, you need to, like you said, you need to know actual facts. And if you get them wrong, or even slightly off, somebody's there. And like you said, if you have a degree in that kind of stuff, and the higher the degree you have, it makes a lot of sense. Of course, you need to know all those details. So I would also agree with you that it's not really prejudice in that case. It's education.
It is, yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. Science fiction is the only one I can think of where there aren't that many women. All right, cool. So then let's move on to another one that's from Twitter. J.D. Estrada said, I think I've had more women readers than men. This is something from YouTube. I think I've had more women readers than men, though I think in general there are far more women readers, which I think we did touch on. Women read a lot more books. So another question from Twitter then is, what is better for writing, music or silence? Which is not so much a gender question, but it's an interesting one for sure.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure, it was what is better for writing, listening to music or just silence?
Music.
I will go last on this question. Go ahead, everyone.
Okay. Whatever genre I write, and I mean I do everything from MC thrillers to fantasy. I do flash fiction of all genres, horror, science fiction, comedy, romance. And I've got young adult as well in my collection. So, but I always listen to music when I'm writing. Not when I do from pen to paper the old-fashioned way, and then I type up onto the computer. So when I do pen and paper, that's in silence. Or I'm out in the coffee shop and I'll start writing notes or start chatting in my dictaphone. But it's when I'm home on the computer and I'm actually typing up my notes, that's when I listen to music. And because I've always, I used to sing in a rock band, so rock music has always been and played a huge part in my life. And because of that, it doesn't matter what I'm writing, whether it's a comedy, a romance, or my fantasy, I listen to rock music while I'm writing because it just, I don't know, it just takes me away from reality and it gets me, it's because I have the passion for rock music, to listen to rock music. That's always been in my life. I think that's why I get more comfortable and able to fade away into my work because I have that passion for that genre of music.
Yeah, just to jump in, it kind of separates you from the world a bit. I totally agree with that. And for me, it would have to be something that sounds to me like the book I'm writing. So I agree. Like I have a lot of times write with music. What about you other ladies?
I cannot write at all. Nope.
You go, Amy.
Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, sorry. I can't write with music at all. I need like complete concentration. If I do listen to music, it's usually to drown something out, like a lawnmower or neighbors next door or something like that. And I'll just have to put classical on, something that I can just kind of as white noise. The music I listen to is kind of heavy, so I think it would be more distracting. I listen to like a lot of like metal and industrial and stuff, and so I kind of, whenever I have tried to write with music, I tune out and I start listening to the music and not doing my writing. So I just like the silence, and then I think listening to the music as a reward once I finish writing. That's just how I work.
So then, Amy, if you like silence better, do you have any pictures like around you or online or something that you look at to help you like move ahead in a book?
What do you mean exactly?
Like sometimes you'll have like a Pinterest or something that maybe has some images that will focus on like your book, like fantasy images or something along those lines. I'm just wondering.
Sometimes, I mean, if I'm really having like writer's block, I'll look at Pinterest and I'll kind of look at inspirational images or inspirational quotes. I have like a whole collage right next to my desk here of different inspirational quotes, like from Thoreau and different writers I really like that I'll kind of look at. But other than that, I mean, I'm pretty much just honed in on my computer or the piece of paper that I'm working on.
Great, great. Claire, what were you going to say?
Oh, first of all, like, my internet keeps dropping out. Sorry about that. I'm actually deaf. I actually wear hearing aids, so if I really want silence, I just take the hearing aids out. So it's quite handy. However, I do have I do have a TV beside me sometimes for background noise or just so you don't feel alone. All my children are at school or college, but when the school holidays are here, you just don't see them anyway. So my silence is either listening to them if they say anything or just take the hearing aids out. No music.
Mark, or Marnie?
I get disturbed too often.
I work in silence. Lyrics in a song will always. I'm the person that hears the lyrics, not necessarily the rhythm or the beat of the music. So, but I do have songs that I will listen to. I'm like, well, that's my character. That's Mara and Cole's song right now. That's what they're feeling. And so if I'm writing, I might later on go back and just listen to that song. There was an Elvis Presley song, Suspicious Minds, that inspired in my last book that I published. That was really. It really helped me just like listening to it to help me get into that feeling of what the characters were going through and what they were struggling with. So usually silence while I'm writing, but if I want inspiration, I might turn on the radio just to get the feeling, that you get from music. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Similar, Marky? Yeah.
I can pretty much work in any conditions. I took my tablet one time to a store. My husband was getting a piece of equipment worked on, and I'm sitting there with my tablet and I'm just typing away, and they look at me and they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm writing. I'm an author. I'm working." Going on? Well, yeah, I'm kind of used to it at home. I've got teenagers.
Yeah.
That's great. Angela, what were you going to say?
I studied music composition, and I wanted to be a Hollywood music composer prior to being a writer. So I went through almost a decade of studying music theory and breaking it down, and I spanned from music at the beginning of history all the way up to, I think I made it to the 1970s. I'm about to enter 1980 and study the forms from there. So whenever I hear music, I absolutely focus on the harmonies and I start pulling away the theory and breaking down the chords usage and the modes. So I can't listen to music at all when I write because first and foremost I'm a musician and I will immediately go into composition and start working on the music. That being said, though, when I am off writing, I will listen to Two Steps from Hell. I love Two Steps from Hell. And I know, aren't they great? and if you actually look at my book trailers, I always use Two Steps from Hell because they've done so much. And I always include the iTunes link so you can go get their music. But it's across the board I use their music because it does so much to inspire certain scenes or images in my head. So I'll be dancing and rocking out to the Two Steps from Hell, and I'll go, ooh, this is the next song. And I'll pull it, and we'll just hit it replay. And I'm the kind of person that can listen to a song for literally a week at an end and just on replay. It drives my husband crazy. And I'll just consume this song and literally will compose in my head the entire thing to this composition, and then I will sit down and in silence write it out. But that being said, I do what Marky does, and I can block out kids screaming, I can block out coffee shop noises. So in that sense, I absolutely, as long as it's not music, I can block it out.
Would you say, actually, going off something you said there, would you actually say that sometimes music might lead your story in a different direction?
No.
Okay.
It does. No, the story absolutely. I have to find the music to fit the story. It is never, and it's mostly the details. I have this one battle scene at the very end of one of my books where my protagonist just turns that over and she's ready to seriously take down the antagonist. And it was two steps from. It was on Enya actually. I cannot remember the composition. It'll be available on my site, but. There's something about hearing the way Enya performs this composition where I see the look in her face. I see the slow motion, the sword, and the blood dripping down her arm into the blade. And I call it the Colin is pissed song. But the detail and how this thing is going to play out, that's where the music shapes it.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, yeah. I do the same kind of thing, and I can replay a song over and over. I've actually been trying to figure out if there's some kind of something where I can take like a minute of a song, because sometimes it's like this one tiny section.
Yes, yes.
Right? And if I can replay that over and over.
Yeah, Tchaikovsky's, I think it's his second or first piano concerto. Mm-hmm. It's everyone knows the piece, and it starts off that piece. But it's the first 30 seconds of the song, that's it. The rest of the concerto, it's something else, I don't know. But that first opening, and I would sit there and just replay, 10 seconds of replay. And it's, yeah, you do, I wish there were times where I could pull out that snippet.
So true. I do that a lot too. Oh boy. Okay, great. So, let me ask you another question. Do you ever try to make an effort in your books to point out or discuss women's issues?
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally. But does it? It sometimes happens? Yeah.
It probably does happen sometimes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you go back and read your book and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I actually did discuss something like that, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's
But with Marky, we're doing an anthology with sisters. I can't remember what it's called, Marky. Gems of Strength, I think. So it's all about women and their strengths. So I've put in a short story for that. So I think that's probably about the only thing I've written, which comes under that question.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I say no, but you know, my memoir is about rape, pedophilia, animal abuse, and to me, it's not. It's just abuse and it's trauma. It's not woman issues. And despite the book, I don't think I can answer on this one. I really don't know. You really have. Who asked the question?
Well, actually, that's one of mine.
Oh, you really gave me some stuff to think about. Like, I have to reread my book. I don't know. It's not conscious.
Sometimes we do write these things and we don't realize that we have actually written something that's very valid to like a women's issues kind of thing. And in my book, Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, it's all central, around this one main female character. And it's back in the 19th century, and it really does, some of it revolves around like what rights women did and didn't have and what was expected of them. Sometimes I'll just throw it in little bits, of things, but, for example, all the things that you could be submitted to an asylum for. That's a serious issue,
no, that was, yes, absolutely, and I love pulling on this. I am a huge linguist, etymology and the history of the development of words. Lunatic actually revolved to lunar or luna with the moon, and it was believed that a woman's menstrual cycle was lined up with the moon and it would turn her into a lunatic, and that was cause enough. And if you actually, we found, you may have seen it, Christy, it went around the internet. And we sent it over to the slush spring, and there was one of the what will put you in a mental assignment was menstruation.
Yeah.
And 100 years ago, 200 years ago, if you menstruated, so women, stop it. Just don't do it. I mean, 50% of the population, just like that, went into a mental asylum. It just.
Wow.
Here's another little bit of history for you. In New Zealand, we were actually the first women in the world to actually get the vote in 1897.
1897, that's almost right. England soon followed. and we wouldn't hit around till 1911. The States, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool.
We can just pull these numbers out of our heads.
Oh boy. All right. So then let's move on to another one from Twitter then. What is your role in the development of covers and artwork for your books? And this is a great question because some of us make our own books. And I know a lot of us are very, we're all very picky about like what we want, you know, and we want it to be just right. And that's that, you know, somebody mentioned perfectionist type of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
learning.
I am curious, who here has designed their own covers?
My first cover, I did design myself. When I did go with the publisher, I had lost all my files. I had a computer malfunction. So then they did design my cover. And honestly, I love my original. It was a little pink tree with the elements kind of bouncing around it, which I will always have a great love of my little pink tree. But the publisher, I think, really did a good job at like understanding my book and creating a fantastic cover. And if I could show it to you, if I lifted my computer right now.
Yeah.
Like,
do it. I want to see this.
I am so like.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine, Marnie. I do love the pink tree, and I see. Is that painted on your wall then? That's not a painting. That's like on your.
No, that's just a sticker. That's not actually my book. That's just my my representation that I keep near me.
I love it. I love it. It reminds me of a cherry tree.
It probably is. You're probably spot on.
I know that.
I wish I could show you my latest book cover. Sorry.
Go ahead, Claire. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wish I could show you my latest book cover because the concept of the drawing I did myself, but I've had several other artists help with it. Unfortunately, it's not released until the 28th of this month, so it'll have to be a few weeks down the track.
Yes, please, Karina. I want to see these book covers. I'm
going to grab mine too. I don't know how you can see. It's a bit the light. Yeah. Yeah. I give the concept to the artist. I knew exactly what I wanted, and within 2 drafts, she got it spot on.
Wow.
You know, I said to her, you know, the story's about a woman going from our time into another realm. So having 2 different identities, 2 different looks. So why not actually have her on the front of the cover as Becky and as Fire, which she's done. So this is, I mean, I have 8 books, and this by far is my favourite cover.
That is such a unique one. That really caught my eye when I saw that.
Yeah, and I love that you have it in the back. That's wonderful. Just then off the side, if you take like a bookend, one of the flat ones, and you prop it up and you put it between the pages, it will automatically create a book stand. I do that in the back when I need one, and it's wonderful. I have Dollar and Shadow, and this is done by Indigo Forest Designs. He did both of these. And he also just got done with my 3rd one. I did the book cover reveal just yesterday. And I'm sorry?
Sorry, my internet went off again.
The Raven was my addition, and the color theme. I said I did want something very dark, and when you look at it, it does look dark fantasy. I write dark everything and macabre, so I did want that to be communicated. But everything else, though, and I said I wanted the stays on it, which is the physical, what the magic in my world looks like. In my world, you can see the magic, and I did say I wanted somewhere on it where you could see it, and everything else, though, he did. It was 100%. I'm huge on letting the artist do what the artist does. So I'm just like, this is what I see with the Raven, and I want the magic. Other than that, have fun, go at it. And he did. And same thing with Broken. I said this is what the genre is, this is what the subject matter is. I want it dark, have fun. And he put together this beautiful, And Fire and Lies, I did say I want the Raven back, which is going to be an ongoing thing with all my fantasy books, and I wanted the Scythe, the magic, worked into Fire somehow. And he took Fire and Lies and then he wove it in so it's Fire and the Scythe this time. It just, I loved what he did. I absolutely love his artwork. But I don't have very much. I'm not picky. I trust my artist enough that I can step back and, you know, but I'm very familiar with his style. I follow his artwork everywhere, so I know that if I just let him be, he'll produce something gorgeous.
Yeah, that's great. Marky, I know you make your own book covers. Marky does a lot of. Actually, I think Marky, I think all of your book covers are your own. There might be a delay.
With the exception of one, Claire's daughter actually did for me.
That's great. Amy, I know that you wanted to show yours as well.
I do.
Yes, please.
I had so much fun designing this. So I actually went through 99 designs just because I kind of knew what I wanted, but I wanted to have the artists submit their designs as well. So I basically just put the description in there and said I wanted something really surreal and whimsical and weird. See what people came up with, and so I got almost like 150 designs I had to narrow down. It was really fun, but it was also really challenging. And so this was the winner. If you could see it, it's kind of a glare there. But so it's basically the protagonist is red hair in the book, and so I wanted that was really my only criteria, was that the protagonist on the front has red hair, and she's kind of like floating through water, but she's in a forest, and it's really kind of whimsical and weird, and you have to kind of look twice at it. And then I also wanted to have like a cricket somehow in it, so they put a cricket on the spine and a cricket on the back. That's actually a big part of the story. There's this basically this magical cricket that has these cryptic messages that they use throughout the story. So it's kind of fun little Easter egg on there.
Yeah.
That is cool. I myself went with ebook launch, and I have mine here if you can see it well. This is Enemy of American Heart.
I've got to read that. I've got a copy, I haven't read it yet.
Well, you know, and the back also has some amount of design, and the idea was I wanted the girl on the front I didn't want her face shown because I wanted you to sort of imagine her the way she is, and there's only a certain amount that I wanted you to be able to see. So it needed to be really, really dark, and you know, the broken mirror, like every element of it, I wanted everything on it to really mean something. So the wallpaper appears in the book and it matters. The key appears in the book and it matters. Same thing for the mirror. The dress that she's wearing even, I asked the designer, I found a dress that was what I modeled a main scene with her in, and she wore it. And I said, can you make like a character that's wearing this dress? And he was able to do it. And on the back, even the flower means something. So for me, I was the opposite. I was so picky. You know, we went back and forth, and I was like, exactly like this, you know?
Christy, you and I need to do a book swap.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. I'm like, oh yeah, that's something that I love dark. I love dark. I love being able to read something and not knowing.
I don't know if you can see this very well. It's on my.
Yes, please.
In addition to doing covers, I've also created this trading cards for my Undead Unit series. Double-sided.
Marquis, what are trading cards? Can you explain?
Marky, there might be a bit of a delay. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Thanks, Karina, for asking. I've designed these undead or immortal species. Will eventually have one. This is the front of the angel card that I've designed. On the back, they will have like some on that particular species as it's seen in the series. So I've currently got 6, and then I've got this one and this ship soon. Yeah, they're round cards. They're a little smaller than a coaster. They're done on really good heavy-duty stock, and they've been fairly popular. I've been really surprised with them. Here's the shifter one. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because the shifter that a little bit. She's in the series. Person has their own animal they can shift in.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. It's good to come up with something different too. That's really
Another
nice.
way to market.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a little bit different than having necessarily, something like at the back of your book. It's something that you could hand out, of course, and people see it in advance, and then I think that's really cool. Yeah. We have a comment and a question that are coming in live. We have a comment from Amber Sage. I love all the thought that went into everyone's book covers. It's always interesting to hear how each author decided what to include on their covers. So that's really nice. And then we have a question from Josie. Hi, ladies. Big fan of all of you. Yeah, Amy, on the medal comment.
Right.
My question is, how do you define leadership?
Oh, this one's fun.
That's a deep
Yeah, I will jump in.
Yeah.
I am, and then this is something I've been thinking a lot about with the Brain to Book Cyber Convention. I got the concept last year when I had to learn Shadow. I was getting ready to publish it, and I had read that I needed to market. And authors do not like marketing. For the most part, it just, let me curl up in a hole, right? Please, somebody else do the marketing. I was the opposite. I love marketing to the point where more than writing, and it's dangerous for me because I need to write. So I actually have to really work to pull myself off of marketing. So one of the things, I did a lot of research on marketing and how to get my book out there. One of the things that really hit me when I was doing all my research was innovative idea. You really have to have idea, and you have to be, I'm going to say, courageous enough to step up and talk to people and say, look, I've got an idea. And you have to have a dragon skin. You have to have that, they might come back and say no. Honestly, I think it's risk. It is definitely risk-taking, and you throw it all out there. And I think the difference really with what defines leadership is being open enough, brave enough to say, okay, I have an idea and I'm going forward with it. Who wants to come with me? And that, to me, that's leadership. That's how I handled this. This is how the Cyber Convention went from my idea to now almost 780 members in a year, is because I said, hey, I have an idea. I'm doing it. Now who's coming with me? And I think that really encompasses leadership.
Yeah. That's really good stuff, Angela. And I have to say that in the first year, last year was the first year of the Brain to Book Cyber Convention, I was shocked at how organized everything was. I mean, you just had this thing laid out so well. I was like, wow, it's as if you've been working on it for years, but I'm sure you probably just
winged it. It was improvised.
and it came across so well. The confidence,
Yeah, and that's really confidence. You have to be confident enough, and I'm going to get very personal here, but I have borderline personality disorder, which by definition means, and this is the irony, it means that you have defined yourself as worthless. You have a distorted sense of self. So I have all these people coming in saying, you've been doing a great job, you've been doing this, and every time in the back of my head I'm going, really, I'm not this great. I am not. And I have this mental condition that I'm working on that I'm trying to overcome. But in addition, it's also, I am definitely overcompensating. I am definitely trying to compensate for what I've defined myself. So I've got this, I'm worthless here, and then I've got this, well, I got to make up for it. So now I'm an overachiever. So now I'm doing these massive, I have to have everyone after me. I have to, it's definitely driving everything I do, because at the end of the day, in my definition, I am worthless and I have to make up for that. But again, it's that I have this idea and now I'm doing it. I have to do it because of what my mental issue, how it distorts my thoughts. And suddenly I've got these people following me. And, you have to not care. I think that's a good part of this. You really have to not care if people say no, which is hard for me because of what borderline personality is. There's people pleaser, and then there's BPD. And just to give you an idea, Marilyn Monroe and Robin Williams had BPD, and it's actually that mindset is why Robin Williams led to suicide. It's a challenge, and to me that leadership is really it does a lot. It really does a lot. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I agree with so much of that. Yeah, go ahead.
I think to be.
Okay, yeah. One of the things when I started my editing company,
I think to be an effective leader, you have to do it as well as just tell it. I had supervisory positions a lot in my jobs, and the way I taught people was by doing it myself. I would never ask my people to do something I wasn't willing to do my own self.
Yeah. Yes, perfectly said.
Which is how I started too, for that matter.
Yeah, and there really is I'm not going to say, I have an idea, I'm not going to wait for somebody else to get my idea. I'm just going to do it. There, definitely, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I first started my editing company, at first I thought to myself, well, there are a million out there. What makes me think that I can start my own? And that made me push it off for a long time. And then I would just I so wanted to do it that I took that exact approach, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it, and that's that. And, if it comes off great, and if it doesn't, I'll try something else, and that's how it came to be. Exactly. You just have to sort of push through that.
Yeah.
And just do your thing. Yeah.
Endure and persevere.
That's exactly.
Say those. That's going to be on my gravestone. Endure and persevere. And here I fail.
Definitely on that one.
Amy, I know that with your books, or your book rather, Strange Luck, the first book that you tried to publish, I know that you submitted to a lit agent who tried to change it so much that it kind of made you not very interested in the book anymore, but you came back from that, didn't you?
Yeah, so I mean that was definitely a learning experience, and so I had tried to do the traditional publishing route because I thought that was really all that there was. I didn't know really anything about indie publishing or self-publishing or how to do that. So I had written a book previously before I wrote Strange Luck, and I had curated it to a lot of agents, had a lot of interested agents, and I had one in particular that basically was like, oh, I love this, I could totally see us having a relationship, just change a couple things, and they ended up being like really big things, but I thought, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and it was stuff like the era, or taking out complete characters, and things like that, and so I did it. Took me almost like a year to make all these changes, and then she read it again, said she wanted more changes, and read it again, and I just felt terrible about doing this the whole time. I was like, I don't want to take this out, I don't want to change this, this completely changes the meaning of the story. And after all of that, it didn't work out with the agent. I just was not happy with what I had written, and she still wasn't happy with my book. So I ended up completely abandoning that project, and it took me a really long time to kind of pick myself up after that, because I was just like, well, am I ever going to be a writer? Am I ever going to get my book published? And I had a couple friends that had self-published their books, and they were telling me all the time about how they loved it and how it gave them control, and they didn't have anyone telling them, what to do, and they could just, put their vision to fruition. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to let anyone else influence me. So I wrote Strange Luck. I wrote it how I wanted it. I didn't, I let other people read it and give me some feedback, but I only changed it if I really felt that it was a valid thing to change. But it's pretty much exactly how I had written it originally. And I
Good for you.
Thank you. So I'm really happy about it, and I'm going to do it again. I mean, I wouldn't change it. It was a really neat experience, because I also liked having control over every little detail. So everything from just the cover and the editing experience and distribution and marketing. And so I'm a bit of a control freak. Christy and I have had this conversation. So it's kind of fun to have that much control over the whole project, and so I think it was just really about kind of what everyone was saying, just doing what you're going to do and just not waiting for anybody and just charging ahead.
Joe and I were talking about what you were just talking about, Amy, regarding the changes, because he had that problem. He submitted his book and they had it out on the table, and these weren't edits that the editors were coming in. They hadn't even looked at his book. This was just it was actually for and I think this is correct, a movie company that wanted to tear it apart, and he said no. And one of the things he was explaining was he's been through the music indie world. And music is indie. There is no, it's indie. By default, that's what it is. But he's been through the music world. He's been through the movie world. And there is no, let's tear this apart and change it. But with books, for some reason, there is this concept that people, not the author, can just come in and start ripping apart our work. And excuse me, WTF? where do they get off? I mean, you don't take a composition and go, that's great. Let's take out the 7th chord and replace it with the 1 chord there because it's not hitting me right. No, it's as if they're saying to the artist, okay, you don't know your art. We know what sells, and we're gonna no. And this is where, when it comes to leadership is required when you say, I'm going to be an author. I'm going to be an artist. It is the moment you decide you're going to be any kind of an artist. It requires leadership because you are your own and you are self-managing. So, and I actually am due very much on another panel at 12 o'clock, zombies. So I have to power up now and jump panels. So I do want to thank you all for having me, and for the listeners here. I wish I could say, I really do, and I'm sorry, scheduling. So thank you so much, Christy.
Thank you so much for coming, Angela. It was so great having you here.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah.
Bye. On the publishing, she stood there. Sorry, on the publisher, as a publisher.
I actually wrote my first book while I was still in high school. That's the book now is Once Upon a Way.
Say it again, Marcy. Claire, I think you were in the middle of saying something.
Okay. As a publisher, I have had several clients so far who we've started before they've been trying to write their books, but they've not succeeded. One particular client used free flow, so she wrote down what she felt each time she needed to do her writing, and then she got it into a timeline order, into chapters, and we're actually looking at release for it this year. So instead of telling them what not to do, it was more to do with telling them, go for it, and if there's anything really serious, you're ready to, we'll pick it up. But in the long run, it's just been really a lot easier for them to keep their control over the book, and I actually prefer to work that way.
I totally agree with you. This is actually covering a bit a question that we have from JD Estrada, which is, has any of the authors opted for indie publishing due to frustration with the traditional publishing industry? And I think what you just said and what Amy has said and everyone really hits on it, having that kind of control, because frankly I've seen a lot of stuff published by big publishing companies that may have tons of reviews, but frankly some of them, some of these books are so long, and they're longer than they need to be. Like, you read it and you're like, okay, a third of this can be cut out, And I feel like afraid that if I were, let's say, a big, huge publishing company took me, I would be really scared that they would say, we need to extend this, and it would lose its power, or something along those lines. We need to add in this kind of an issue that would actually ruin it in my, and I would lose my artistic, abilities there. I would lose what I have. That makes my book mine, so that's how I feel. How about you, Marnie? How do you feel about that? Oh, Karina, let me ask Karina first.
Sorry. I would only go with a publisher now if I was 100% certain they would be doing all the marketing and all the promotion, because even nowadays they're not taking people on unless you have a well-built international social media platform. You don't have that, we don't want you. They're not even going to look at the book. It's straight away, you don't have that, we don't want you. So, I mean, we do all the marketing promoting ourselves as indie authors, and that's hard enough as it is. But if they were willing to take all that on 100%, then maybe I'd be willing to let them have a look at the book, say what changes they think need doing, decide then whether I'm going to let them do those changes or not. But the only way I would go with a traditional publisher now, and I've done both in these 20 years, I have done both. The only reason I do it now is if they did take on the marketing and promotion side.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you, and actually on that point, I had seen a video by Jackson Pierce, who's I think a YA author, and she had said, it was a YouTube video where she said that she was with, I forget, it was some major publisher, and she still had to pay for a lot of the marketing stuff. Like sometimes they would print stuff, and she would have to send all of it out, like address it all, put on the stamps, send it out. Sometimes she'd have to have it printed herself. She said that it was pretty expensive to be published by, you know, one of these big publishers.
Why to do it? Exactly. Why to do it? You might as well become indie. Why to let them have a piece of your cake when you can do it yourself?
I agree.
Right.
I agree completely, and she had no control of her cover either. She had said, you know, if you think that when you're going to be published by a big traditional publisher, you're going to have control over your cover, you need to think again, because I didn't even get to see it. And then, you know, they showed it to me, and you know, she said that they showed it to her, and she could just say, yes, I like it, no, I don't. And they did whatever they were going to do with it, essentially. And like for me, that is a no-go. Oh my God, I would be so upset. You know, like especially. Like in the movie industry, sometimes they advertise things completely wrong. You know what I mean? Like you see these commercials and you're like, oh, this is going to be such a great, funny movie. This happened to me once, and I went to see it in the movies, and it was the most depressing movie I've ever seen. And I was like, if they do that to my book, oh no.
Who better knows your book than yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
Very true.
Look at James Patterson right now. Has anybody seen the ads that he's putting out? He's sitting in front of a bland backdrop, and he's sitting on a stool and talks about his books. I guarantee you anything, James Patterson is paying for those advertisements rather than his publisher.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I would not be surprised, yeah. Absolutely.
Going back to the frustration of publishing with traditional publishers was the learning curves you had to go through to set it out how an editor or an agent actually wanted it. And that's what got me thinking that, well, if I have to learn all this, why don't I just start my own company? And as it's progressed, I've learned and grown and ended up formatting. And if it wasn't for a local gentleman where I live, I probably wouldn't have a business, because he actually requested me to format his work, and it's just taken off from there. So it's the learning curve and helping other people.
Yeah.
I did start out on my own, and then I found out about the publisher I'm with, and while it's not a traditional publisher, it's an indie publisher. They don't tell me to change my work. They do support me. What I pay out of pocket is so minimal for editing and publishing and for the cover that it makes it worth it. In the time I was on my own, I made way less money, and now I don't have to worry about it as much. So I'm really happy with what my publisher's doing as far as marketing, and I can just write.
Yeah.
You know, I still have to do this reaching out, but I can just write. Which
that's fantastic. You're with Creativia, right? Is that right?
Yes, it is. I didn't know if we're branding, so I didn't want to.
That's okay. I know.
And they took my book, which this is my Create Space one, which still has my pink tree. It's cuter on the Kindle, in my opinion. But they made this lovely cover. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow.
And they get me enough to know that the next book, like I told him,
I love it.
suggestion, I didn't like it. I'm like, that's not really, and he's like, you're right. And then they sent me one that was my book cover. So I feel like, you know, you have to go with. I could not do it on like my own, like Marky and Claire, and even Amy. You know, I just don't. I don't have that in me. Sorry, Karina, you too. I'm just like, I need to have someone help me.
Yeah.
I mean, if
We're
I would
always here to
go
help.
with your publisher because they
I used to think the
they
same
are
thing,
taking over the
honestly.
marketing and promoting.
You know, that's the. I mean, my ranks go up and down, so I know my books are selling. So that makes me happy.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So happy for you. That's what we all want.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That sounds like a really good publisher there.
I like it. Which
Well
is,
done,
I
Mark.
feel bad because I submitted and then I backed out. And a very good author friend said to me, "Why are you backing out? This is a good thing." But I didn't want to relinquish my rights and, you know, fall into a trap. But no, I'm glad that I was talked some sense into and went for it.
Good.
I'm sure that it's kind of like tough to figure out. You need to assess like really carefully the publisher and what work they are going to do, and whether it's worth it. So yeah, that would probably take a lot of research, and you picked the right one. Yeah.
I did. I hope.
It sounds like it. We have been given permission to go over our time, so if you need to go, you know, that's totally fine. But I just want to ask you like maybe one or two more questions, if you ladies are up for it.
Sure.
Great. So
Not going anywhere.
excellent.
Okay.
So I have an interesting question here from Twitter, and that is, what is the hardest scene you've ever had to write, emotionally or technically? It can be either way. And that can be kind of a tough question to think of, like, off the top of your head. I know. So do you guys have something off the top of your head, or I'll go ahead and tell you what my hardest scene is, and you guys can think about it. Let me tell you, in Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, there was a scene that sort of breaks. It's at the end of part one, right before part two, and it's the part where my character really changes in her book. And I'm not going to give any spoilers in case, you know, anybody watching hasn't read it and they want to, but this is where the main character starts to have a break. Let's just say it that way. And it was hard for me to write the scene that makes her break. I had such a hard time that I actually took a month off of writing, and it kept going through my head, and I kept being like, I can't do this to her. I can't do this to her. You know, I feel so bad. This is awful. You know, and I would write around it. Sometimes I would go to the next section where she had already had this happen to her, and I could write there, but the scene where it happens, I had such a hard time with, and it really took me time to get it down. In the time, you know, that I thought about it, I was able to really like gather my thoughts on what would be the best way to do it. But in the meantime, I would literally think about it. Maybe it would pop into my head during the day, and I would just be like, I don't know if I can do this to her, you know. But I had to for the story. I'm sorry. So,
that's really interesting because I've actually read Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, and it's awesome, by the way, if you guys haven't read it yet.
Thank you.
But I know exactly the scene that you're talking about, and I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really great, and I did know when exactly it did happen, and I think that that's when the story really took a really awesome kind of darker turn, so I really liked it.
Thank you. I'm really glad. It was the hardest part for me to write, but, you know, emotionally, not technically, but emotionally, it was tough. Do any of you have like really difficult? I know that fight scenes are one of the, you know, hardest types of things.
I was just gonna say that I really hate writing fight scenes. I think emotionally and technically, and so there is a fight scene in my book, and I just really didn't like writing it, but I know that I needed to do it as kind of necessary for the story. And I just don't like fight scenes in general, like especially in movies and stuff. I'm not a big action movie person, and I usually zone out when there's fight scenes in like a book or a movie. But I know I needed to put that in there. There's no other way I could have had it. So, and I think emotionally speaking as well, because when I am writing, I really try to transport myself into what's happening. So I actually like feel the anguish, and then when I read it back, I usually like read it out loud and kind of act it out. And I'll do like accents and the whole bit, like to really like try to get into character. And so I feel like I just went through it, and it's really emotionally taxing. So
definitely, it definitely is.
Christie, before you go, I'm going to have to say good night because it's 10:04 in the morning.
Thank you for
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, definitely emotionally and technically fight scenes are very difficult. I completely agree with that in many different ways. Has anybody else had trouble with that? I know that, like, personally, I've read some books where...
Christie.
Yeah, you have. Go ahead, Marky. Yeah, do you have something specific?
The worst scene that I actually have ever written, I think, is coming out in our Gems of Strength anthology.
Oh, really?
And I wrote a little short story about the way I was going through cancer and what I went through being so far away from my family and not knowing what was going to happen the next day. And that was really very difficult for me to write. But I think after having written it, I feel better.
That's wonderful.
Closure, yeah. I had a lot of closure from my work. We had... I write about my outlaw motorcycle club, so they do go on to talk about the rape and stuff. I could never get really detailed in those scenes. I can tell the reader what's happening. I can show the reader, but I didn't want to get too deep because I don't know. It's just I couldn't get there. I couldn't go there. I mean, it's detailed enough, but it's something that I did find difficult. But I think the thing that I found the hardest when it's come to writing is when I'm writing about something that's happened or I've experienced myself, such as bullying. I had to go through that again when I wrote Stone Cold because I kill off my bullies in that book. So I had to go all through that again. I mean, that doesn't leave you anyway, bullying. That stays with you for life. Attempted suicide is another subject that I've touched on. Cutting, another subject. I mean, unfortunately, these are subjects that a lot of teenage girls do experience, and I thought it was the right thing to do, to talk about them. But that was hard. I mean, it's hard when you try and if you haven't experienced something, you are getting into. It's like what Amy said. I think it's Amy, is it? Sorry. It's like what Amy said, that you are going into the mind of the character. So if they're going through something really emotional, you're feeling that with them, and it takes you to a dark place. And I don't think readers understand the mentality that we go through to actually get this out and onto paper. Okay.
That's so very true. Absolutely. Yeah, you actually have to go through it, which is why it always shocks me, when people write in detail about things like you said, like rape or something. That is so difficult because you have to put yourself sort of in that position, and that's a very frightening place to go. It's very disturbing. So,
it is, yeah.
It can be hard enough to read, but it's even harder to write. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we do just one more, and then we'll bring it to a close. And that is an interesting one. And this is from Twitter also. When and how did you find your voice as a writer? I know that I can say that I found it a very, very long time ago, and I think most of us can probably say either from childhood or Marnie, you're shaking your head no. When did you find your voice?
I 3 years ago, I had this weird image come to mind, and this sentence, and it just played over and over in my head, and I'm like, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna write a book, and my sister said, "Oh, okay, you're gonna write a book," and I had just come off of a divorce. I'd been married for 15 years, and I'd always followed his dream, and so I never really had my own I found that I never had my own identity, which was weird because I was always very strong, and then I got married, and then became like this codependent wife, and then all of a sudden this sentence just haunted me, and so no, I'm very new to writing. So 1 year published, 2 books, but only 3 years writing. I wrote as we did in high school, and wrote some things, but some dark poems, as my angsty teenage years. You have to really pour your heart out with your horrible loss of love in your teenagers. But no, I wasn't a writer, and it's not that I wasn't capable, it just wasn't something that I was drawn to. But no, I'm new to this, so I'm always learning.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that you just started. I felt like you had.
I have to halfway agree with Marty.
I think Marky is trying to say something, so we'll just wait for her delay to clear.
Me personally, I've been writing since I was. Yeah, sorry. I've been writing since I was about in 4th grade. And if you read my early book called Once Upon a Western Way, and if you read some of the stuff that I've written over the last year and a half, after the cancer, after the chemo, huge difference. So I guess I have to say I'm new voice now.
That's a really interesting way to put it. Yeah, all that probably emotional growth also that probably had to happen during a period like that, a difficult period, probably did. Yeah, I could see that changing your voice. That's amazing. Yeah. I kind of want to read both of your books now to see, compare, before and after, because that's very interesting.
Chemotherapy. Yeah, chemotherapy kills cancer cells, but it also kills any growing cells, which includes healthy cells, your skin, the inside of your mouth, your hair. That's why you lose your hair. So there's no learning to live with. It probably will never go away.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, Karina, how long have you been writing for?
I think I was first published around about 20 years ago, and I was at my because I'm from the UK, so I don't know about grades and your classes over in the US. So I was in my middle school, and one summer holiday, I actually ripped loads of stories, loads of poems, put them all together in a lovely neat little booklet, and decorated all the borders with flowers, nice and pretty, and then handed it to my English teacher and said, "Oh, this is what I've been doing over the summer." Basically, I've got it back covered in red pen from all the errors, which, and sarcastic comments as well about stuff that happened in the stories. And basically, she turned around and said to me, "Oh, you'll never be a writer."
Oh.
And I think it was at that point that I was like, "Oh, really? Well, I'm going to show you."
Good.
And I did. So I think it was the English teacher that actually, that's where I found my voice, was after that. It was to prove to myself and to others that I could do it.
You should send her your book.
Yeah, I would have. I mean, yeah, that was the first thing that was in my mind when I held it in my hand. I was like, oh, I wish I knew where she lived and I could send her it and say, ha,
Yeah. That's so true, and that's great that you used that to go ahead with your your determination became solid. Then that's an awesome story, and I think that's something that a lot of people could use to hear, especially when they're younger and they're really not sure about their direction or whether something is doable. That's really good.
I mean, it's supposed to be the teacher that gives you the confidence to go ahead and, oh yeah, you could be a writer if that's what you want to do. Not to knock you down like that,
Right.
but it did work in my favor. But I don't think that's why she did it.
No, but you used it. That's good. That's fantastic. Marky is going to leave now. She's going to bow out. For the moment, a storm is coming, and that's why her reception is kind of bad. So thank you so much for joining us, Marky. It was great having you here.
Bye, Marky.
Thank you.
I'm going to say one last thing.
Thanks for having you. And
yeah.
Bye. Christie, I'm
Bye.
really excited for the gender because the stories in that anthology are just going to be awesome sauce.
Yes, totally agreed. They're going to be amazing. Definitely check that out. It's coming out May 31st, right, Marky? Yeah. That's going to be an exciting one. Thank you so much for coming.
30th.
30th, May 30th. Okay.
Ladies, thanks. Have a
Nope.
Yeah, that storm is really, really throwing stuff off. Before we quit, I just want to say that actually Amy does a Throwback Thursday specifically for writers once a month. And Karina, I think your story in particular might be a really powerful one to publish on that date. When is that happening, Amy? In April?
That's great. I usually do it the second Thursday of the month, so it's coming up this week. If you want to do it, I posted on my blog, and I just thought it would be fun. I mean, I really like the Throwback Thursday concept in general, and so I thought it would be fun for writers to post their old writing and maybe like a picture with it and just kind of just share it. And I've had a blast doing it for maybe like 6 months now, and for some reason that's like the thing that gets the most traffic to my blog is people really like seeing it, and I usually post like an embarrassing picture. So I have a really good one coming up this week, but I have like I'll take a picture of my old writing journals, and it's all covered in the red Sharpie and stuff like that about all the editing errors and kind of translate it and put on there what type it out and actually edit it how it should be, and share that. And so we'd love for you to participate in that for sure.
Yeah,
and I think Christie, she did one
get in
as well.
touch with you on Facebook.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, Barney, join in too. I know that it's been, you said that you're a recent writer actually for 3 years, but maybe there's something from the beginning of that time that you want to share or something. But yeah, I have also taken part in that, and it is really, really fun actually. I found that I had that I had made so long ago in a class from like 7th grade or something. And, you know, this was the first time, and when I looked in it, I couldn't believe it actually said something in the bio section that was like, you know, Christie is a fiction writer and this is her career, and I was like, oh my god, I wanted to do this, you know, back then. Wow. So, you know, it's kind of fun to like look at that stuff and even see how far you've come or just remember. So definitely join you. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of you for joining this awesome chat. It has gone so well. It's been wonderful hearing all of your opinions. And, you know, I hope that maybe sometime we can do this again. This was really fun. This was part of GoIndieNow 72 live-hour coverage of Brain to Books Cyber Convention, but maybe Joe will let us do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a great
day. Thank you, guys.
It's nice to meet you all.
Yeah, great to meet you too.